When we look back on cinema in the latter half of the 20th century, Harrison Ford must surely go down as one of its most enduring icons. Ford, who broke into Hollywood after working as a carpenter, made brief but impactful appearances in films like George Lucas's American Graffiti and Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation before exploding with the very first Star Wars in 1977, taking on the role of the roguish Han Solo. Ford followed this up with arguably his most iconic performance, as archaeologist/adventurer Indiana Jones in Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark, a role he has reprised for one final time with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The man is quite simply an icon, if not the icon of the Hollywood age Lucas and Spielberg ushered in with their formative 70s blockbusters. But as much as Han Solo and Indiana Jones will likely define Ford's career, there are other performances nestled within his filmography that, while less iconic, are no less deserving of praise. In some ways, they better reflect his strengths as an actor, with Ford finding great success in the late 80s and 90s with roles that emphasized his on-screen vulnerability. We can see this in films like Andrew Davis's The Fugitive, where Ford portrays Dr. Richard Kimball, sorry, had to, and also in the Philip Noyce Jack Ryan movies, where, while still in an action setting, Ford as Jack Ryan isn't shooting guns and commanding the space like an action star. Although obviously still a masculine presence, there's a sensitivity to these performances that exemplify Ford's range as an actor. Sure, he'll punch you in the face, but we're gonna have to see him muster up the strength to do it. At the top of these performances is Ford's turn as Detective John Buck in Peter Weir's neo-noir masterpiece, Witness. I don't just say this because it's Ford's sole Oscar-nominated performance, he should have surely been nominated for The Fugitive as well, but rather because I think it does something that none of his other acting roles did. Benefit from the direction of a filmmaker who truly grasped the myriad features of Ford's screen presence. There will be spoilers as I dive into this performance, so if you haven't seen Witness yet and I've already piqued your interest, duck out, go watch it, and then come back so you can listen to me talk about why it's one of Ford's most impressive roles, if not the most impressive performance of his career. So Witness. The movie was released in 1985 and tells the story of an Amish community sucked into a diabolical conspiracy. The film opens with the Amish in mourning. The husband of Rachel Lapp, played by Kelly McGillis, has passed away, leaving her to raise her son Samuel, played by Lucas Haas, and her father-in-law Eli. Days after the procession, Rachel and Samuel head to the city to visit her sister. They arrive in Philadelphia to a world that's totally alien to young Samuel, who is enraptured by the classical scale of the train station. While on a trip to the bathroom, Samuel witnesses a shocking crime: the murder of a man who we soon learn was an undercover cop. Samuel escapes to be interrogated by Buck, who, while at first struggling to connect with his Amish witnesses, eventually discovers with their help that the men who committed the murder were cops themselves, and the conspiracy, well, it goes all the way to the top. By the way, the moment where Samuel fingers Danny Glover's Lieutenant McPhee as the culprit is hair-raisingly good. A slow, dawning exchange accentuated by Maurice Jarre's ghostly score. This leads to Buck being targeted and, although not his intention, go into hiding with the Amish. Rachel and the village doctor take care of him as he builds his strength back up, with Ford and McGillis developing a chemistry predicated on curiosity as much as it is raw attraction. Buck is now in a different world, one with its own rules and language, in an ingenious reversal of the earlier fish out of water aspect, but the Lapps were in Philadelphia. The fascinating thing about Witness is that even though Buck is a detective, the mystery is solved in the first 30 minutes. The rest of the runtime is spent with him hiding from his pursuers and warming to the Amish lifestyle, to Rachel, with Weir restricting the pace to a slow, soulful tempo. Cinematographer John Seale makes excellent use of Steadicam throughout the film, emphasizing the tranquility of the Pennsylvania countryside, as well as the smoldering embers of Buck and Rachel's ultimately doomed romance. And romance is where Witness excels best. McGillis and Ford's chemistry here is off the charts levels of good, and there's a burgeoning sexual tension Weir takes appropriate time to linger on. When they're not giggling together and having fun listening to Sam Cooke, Buck and Rachel are always exchanging glances, their eyes intimating an anguished frustration of a love they aren't able to act on. This isn't necessarily a sad thing though. Through Witness, Weir emphasizes the beauty of a fleeting connection, which explodes in a breathtaking sequence where Buck and Rachel surrender and embrace. Their paths may ultimately diverge, but the raw shared passion of that romance makes Witness bittersweet in the best way possible. Rachel and Buck go their separate ways, but that doesn't make what they had any less enrapturing. Part of what makes that connection so magnetic is how Weir frames Ford as an actor. Ford himself nails that brand of sensitive masculinity that would define his movies in the 90s, but what Weir does so well here is that he understands Ford's sex appeal. This isn't to say that Ford wasn't shot attractively in his previous films. Han Solo and Indiana Jones are total babes, but rather that Weir lets Ford hold the frame with a quiet, bristling intensity. Buck isn't a dashing rogue like Solo or Jones, and has an inner conflict that forces him to quell his desires, which then spill out in brief, euphemistic moments of passion. Whether that's him guzzling down Rachel's lemonade to the point that it spills down his bare chest, or where he lets loose and dances with her to Sam Cooke. You can argue forever over which film Ford looked best in, but Witness is one of only few to frame him, at least in my view, with that appeal in mind. That quiet, brooding intensity also explodes in grim, spontaneous moments of violence. Witness is not an action-heavy offering from Weir. When there is a violent exchange, it's brief, dark, and to the bone. Shots will be exchanged and someone may collapse, but it's not overly elaborate or choreographed. This is most pronounced in the finale, where Buck turns the Amish landscape against his pursuers. This sequence is where we also get Witness's most gratuitous death, when Buck drowns one of his cop pursuers in a grain silo. Even then, this is an unglamorous and uncomfortable moment, and signed off with another kill where he takes a shotgun and blows McPhee away without any opportunity to surrender. Each of these bursts of violence is complemented by Buck's surroundings. In Philadelphia, it takes place in a quiet, dank car park, exemplifying the cold, unforgiving aspect of a concrete liminal space. In the village, it's on a serene farm, and contrasts with a tranquil Amish way of life. The confrontations of Witness are desperate scrambles for survival, exchanges Ford sells with a trademark vulnerability that would continue to blossom in the following decade. In many ways, Witness marks a key moment in the transformation of Ford's screen persona, which by 1985 had really reached the peak of its popularity. While there would be 3 further returns to Indiana Jones in the years following the film's release, John Buck signals a shift in the kind of roles Ford would portray. Han Solo and Indy are immortal, but, and this isn't a negative, they reflect only a facet of Ford's potential as an actor. Wrapped up in Witness is everything that makes Ford such a legendary screen presence. His sensitive masculinity, his sex appeal, and his committed approach to action. He displayed these talents separately and in tandem on numerous occasions following Witness's release, most notably in Mosquito Coast, which was also directed by Weir, and The Fugitive 2, but John Buck is the typification of Ford's potential. It's a subtly brilliant portrayal in further need of acclaim because one Oscar nomination isn't enough to compete for space with the iconic legacies of his other credits. None of that takes away from the brilliance of Witness, though. Weir's film remains a gripping meditation on violence, the shifting worlds of America, the cultishness of law enforcement, and the sometimes tragic beauty of a love reciprocated, all anchored excellently by McGillis and Ford. It is, in my view, Ford's greatest role, a performance that simply is Harrison Ford. Restrained but explosive, forceful but kind, rugged and yet eloquent. John Buck might not boast the enduring silhouette of Dr. Jones, but he encompasses everything that is great about one of our finest living actors. And that was our look back on Peter Weir's Witness and Harrison Ford's performance as Detective John Buck. I really enjoyed doing this one, as Witness is one of my favorite movies ever, so please, if you did enjoy the video and fancy seeing more deep dives like this, then please be sure to drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also, please do let me know what your favorite Harrison Ford performances are down in the comments below. Are you a Richard Kimball person or more of an Indiana Jones kind of guy? Either way, thank you all for watching. I've been Ewan, this has been What Culture, and I will hopefully see you next time. Unless, of course, I've gone into hiding with the Amish. See ya.